Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the Just Fine podcast. My name is Donald MacPhail, and this is the result of what happens when I am stuck in my apartment for months on end, thinking to myself, talking to myself, not really going anywhere due to the COVID-19 quarantine. I was thinking to myself, getting really introspective, talking to my wall, and then I thought, oh wait, I can just record all of this and post it, and then at least it's a reason for me to be talking to myself. I don't feel as crazy if I record it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of podcasts came about because of the quarantine. All the podcast microphones were bought up on Amazon really quickly when it all started. And so this is my kind of contribution to that whole wave of new podcasts. But like I said, this is the Just Fine podcast. That's all that means. It's going to be just fine. I don't anticipate for this to be some super revolutionary, mind-expanding type of podcast, but I also don't think this is going to be dog shit. It's going to live in that zone of mediocrity. It's going to be just fine. And that's all the goals I have for this. I'm not going to be talking about anything super insightful, not politics, not philosophy or anything like that. I'm really just going to be rambling, talking about things that annoy me. Deep down, I think I'm a pretty angry person, and there's a lot of stuff that annoys me that can fill up a couple hours. But also tell stories. 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds tell me I'm really funny, so I figure, hey, I must be really funny. So maybe that will translate on here, maybe not. We'll find out. Don't really care. Let's see what happens. But like I said, it's going to be just fine. No expectations. If you like it, great. If you don't, oh well. This is what I'm doing. It's kind of, my goal for this is just to be the kind of thing you would listen to if you have like a short commute to work, something you need to listen to while you're cooking, while you're cleaning, not something you have to really pay attention to, but you can just kind of listen in the back of your mind while you're doing something else that may give you a chuckle here and there, maybe like, oh damn, what did he just say? Stuff like that. That's my whole goal for this. Future episodes will not be very structured. It'll be a lot of me just rambling about either what happened to me during that day or the week prior, things that annoy me, things from my life, that kind of thing. My attempts to be funny, primarily. But since this is the first episode, I figured, let me be a little bit more structured and just tell stories. Now, a lot of you who may be listening to this first episode may know me and have met me or known me relatively recently. Can't talk. Kind of nervous. Who cares? But these stories will not be within the last 10 years of my life. So if you know me within that time period, you won't have been around or known me during this time. These are all stories from when I was a little kid, during my elementary school days. And it kind of, once you hear them and you know me pretty well, you'll kind of feel like, oh, that's why Donald is the way he is. That makes so much more sense now. So this kind of gives me a little bit of a backstory. And plus, if I just rambled on for this first episode of like what I'm doing in college right now, what I do for work, my birthday, that kind of thing, no one's really going to pay attention to that. So I figured I'd go with stories that no one's heard of before, kind of like get an audience engaged, intrigued, before they find out how boring I really can be. Oh well, let's just get started. So I grew up in a not small town, but it's medium-sized town called Abilene, Texas, right in the armpit of nowhere. It's like multiple hours from any other big city in Texas, kind of like its own little hub. And in that city, there was a private school called St. John's. Well, there is a private school. It still exists, but called St. John's Episcopal School. Now, like I said, it's a private school. So we wore uniforms every day to school. There was a chapel that was attached to the school that we went to for service every morning. Worship services, Holy Eucharist, that whole kit and caboodle, that kind of thing. Very religious-centered type of school. It was a private school, so what do you expect? But there were a few events that happened that kind of like influenced me, or just were kind of weird, kind of funny, kind of strange during my time there. So the first like big event that happened while I was there involved the hospital. So I started going to that school when I was about 4 or 5. So at that age, you're like in pre-K. And on one particular day, we had just come back for lunch, and after lunch, we usually had movie time. So the teacher sent us all to the bathroom because we were going to watch Dumbo. So we all went to the bathroom, and me and 2 of my friends, we were goofing off in the bathroom like little boys tend to do. Goofing around, running around, trapping each other in the stalls, that kind of thing. Our teacher yells at us, "Boys, you better get out here right away if you want to watch the movie." And so my 2 friends run out. And like an idiot, the idiot I am, I figure, I'm not going to like open the stall door like a normal person. I'm going to crawl underneath the stall wall and then go watch the movie. This was before I realized like there are germs on the bathroom floor that I probably couldn't fit underneath a stall wall, but that wasn't going to stop me. So I'd go. I felt a little pinch on my forehead, but I didn't really think anything of it. And I just climbed underneath, got up, ran out. And as I came out of the bathroom, I passed by another teacher, another pre-K teacher. And she lets out this blood-curdling scream. And screams like, "Donald, what happened?" And I don't remember responding because I blink, and the next thing I know, I'm laying in my nurse's office. And there are a bunch of adults, some of which I couldn't recognize. They're just staring over me. Someone's on the phone. People are freaking out. And then I close my eyes again, and all of a sudden, I look up, and my dad is running through a doctor's office, carrying me frantic. Now, I'm like 4 or 5 at this point, so I haven't really seen my dad upset. But, like, my dad's face was, like, the color of, like, a strawberry. It was super red. I was like, oh, snap. If my dad is this upset and pissed off, I definitely fucked up somehow. And then I closed my eyes again. And when I opened them again, I was underneath a sheet. Just a very cotton weave-like sheet was covering me head to toe. And I could hear a doctor, who I assumed he was a doctor. I knew I was in a doctor's office, so I assumed this guy was a doctor. He was talking, and I heard my mom's voice and my dad's voice. And I was laying on this table, and they were talking. And I didn't know if I was supposed to be awake at this point. And I was terrified to say something. Because, again, I didn't think I was supposed to be awake, so I didn't say a word. So I just laid there as still as possible, terrified I would be in trouble for being awake. Because I had seen, like, TV shows up to that point. Like, cartoons about people having surgery, or there was a show called MASH about doctors in the Korean War. And, like, I knew, like, if doctors are, like, operating on you, you're not supposed to be awake. So I just laid there terrified, thinking I'd get in trouble if they found out I was awake. So the doctor and my parents are talking back and forth, and then I feel like these very sharp pains in my forehead, which later I figured was like the anesthetic. But it hurt a lot, and I don't think it took quite as well as they thought it would, because then I felt every single stitch as it went into my head and out of my head. Like, it wasn't like a dull pain or like I didn't feel numb. Like I felt every little prick and prod that was happening as he sewed up my head. He was explaining like it's not going to be a big deal. He's going to have these 3 stitches in his forehead. Who knows? He might not have a scar for long. And so he stitches me up. I can feel that he's about to take the cloth off of me, and I immediately just close my eyes. I'm like, I can't let them see that I was awake, because then I'm sure I get in trouble. The doctor might get in trouble because I was awake and he was doing everything when I wasn't supposed to be awake. I was freaking out, so I just closed my eyes to avoid the whole thing. That tends to be common with me. I try to avoid confrontation when I can. So they take me home. Everything's fine. I go to school later. Not the same day, but at a later time. I think it was like 2 days later. I go in. Everyone's like, oh my God, what's on your forehead? You look so weird. Can I touch it? I'm like, no, doctor says you're not supposed to touch my stitches. But then everyone, and they're like, oh, okay. And then in pre-K, like, you have something weird on you, it kind of like fades away. Like no one really cares after a little while. And then, but then everyone starts talking to each other, and they start talking about Dumbo, saying Dumbo references. Everyone's laughing, and I have no idea what they're talking about because I missed the movie, obviously, because I was having major surgery on my face. And to this day, I still haven't seen Dumbo. Like, I know it's about a flying elephant, but I don't know what else is in that movie. Like, I think that may be the one with Jiminy Cricket. I don't know. Or wait, is that Pinocchio? Either way, I haven't seen Dumbo to this day. And it's gotten to the point where I'm old now. Not super old, but old enough that I didn't see Dumbo then. I'm not going to see it now. There must have been a reason that I didn't see it that day. God must have said, you know what? You're not going to see Dumbo ever, so you're going to crack your head open, and that's going to stop that. Because I took it as a sign. I cracked my head open. I'm not meant to see Dumbo. I never will see Dumbo. So that was the only major injury that I had during my time at that school. But injuries to other people happened, not necessarily when I was around, but because of me in a way. That sounds weird and kind of leading, but it'll make sense in a second. So a lot of private schools, and a lot of churches especially, will have events during the year called Blessing of the Animals. They're just big events that a church or a private school will put on where people can bring their pets to a priest or a chaplain or a bishop or whoever and have them bless the pet. Nice little events for families to go to. Incorporates the pets. Kids can meet each other's pets, that kind of thing. So obviously St. John's had this very event. They'd have it, I think, twice a year. And me and my brother never used to really go to those because we didn't have a pet during our first few years at the school. And we might go towards the end of the event just to see our friends' dogs, but we didn't have pets, so we didn't go. I mean, we had a fish, but who the fuck's going to bring a fish to get blessed? Chances are that fish will be dead the next week, so there's really no point. And plus, if your friend has a dog and you have a fish, it's kind of like it's really just a shot at your self-esteem. Like, your friend has this big, beautiful chocolate lab, and you have this tiny little betta fish. It's not, especially in elementary school, it's not a fun time if you're in that dynamic, if you're the one who has the fish. So we didn't go for a while. But then one year, I think I was about 7 or 8, we got our first dog. An awesome little dog. A Chihuahua named Scrappy. May he rest in peace. And the thing about Scrappy was, and I mean with most Chihuahuas and Scrappy in particular, don't really think they're dogs. We kind of raised Scrappy to believe he was more of a human. We never like baby talked him. We didn't like, oh, who's a good little boy. We didn't do that. We talked to him like he was just another one of the boys. Like, he was just the third son. My mom, my dad, me, James, my brother would just talk to him in full sentences. He knew everything we were saying. We never put him on a leash because he knew who we were. He wasn't going to try to run away. He had too good a life. And we never tried to put clothes on him because we weren't those type of people to put clothes on our dogs. But then it was time for the first blessing of the animals that we had when we had Scrappy. So we're like, oh, snap, we can finally go. And so we grabbed Scrappy, put a collar on him, put a little shirt on him, and put him on a leash. And when all that happened, he got really upset. Like, what the fuck are y'all doing? Y'all never used to treat me like this, so why are y'all treating me like this now? I'm not a dog. And we take him to the Blessing of the Animals event on the front lawn of the school, and he sees all these other dogs, and he doesn't want to associate with anyone. He stays by my mom. He doesn't like them. Anyone comes near him, he starts to growl at them. It's a Chihuahua, so he's not that intimidating, but Chihuahuas can bark a lot. If you've ever been around a Chihuahua, you know that they can be feisty, and they can be mean, and a little scary at times. And he was, I think, like a year old at this point. And so we pick him up, we get in line. Me and my brother have him. We're moving up the line towards the chaplain. And eventually gets to our turn. And we're like, oh my gosh, finally. We finally have a pet that we can get blessed. We were super excited, super happy to kind of be in the pet club. Like, all our friends had pets that they brought, so now we are in that club. We were just super psyched. And so we go up and we hand Scrappy over to the chaplain. And she takes him from us very gently, turns him around so that, like, his back is resting on her chest and he's looking at us. And the look in his eyes is just a look of pure hatred. Like, how could you do this to me? Why would you hand me over to this stranger? And, like, it hurt me a little bit on the inside, get him looking at us like that, like, just the look of betrayal. Like, why? Why, Donald? Why, James? Why would you do this? But it didn't faze us because we were, like, still super psyched that we could do this for the first time. And so the chaplain starts going on a whole spiel about how dogs are amazing, dogs and cats, and who all pets are like God's gift, and the whole 9 yards. And the whole time, Scrappy's ears are down, and his pupils are dilated, and he doesn't trust, and he's watching her. Every move she makes, he's watching her. And she does, as she finishes her little speech, she starts to make the sign of the cross on Scrappy, where you know, when you touch your forehead, your chest, across your chest to make the symbol of a cross. She starts to do that on him. And he's watching her fingers the whole time. And then, as she places, to kind of wrap up her speech, she places her hand on the very base of Scrappy's neck as like a little, like, small little hand hug on him. And the minute she touches his chest's neck area, he launches and starts biting the shit out of the little webbing that connects your thumb to your pointer finger. And me and my brother just freeze, like, oh God, this isn't good. Our dog just bit a priest. Like, I don't know reasons. I don't know all the reasons that you go to hell, but that probably might be on at least somewhere towards the end of the list. I don't think, but we both looked at each other thinking, like, our Scrappy just bit a priest, we're going to hell for sure. Absolutely, no doubt about it. We've accepted it, oh well. And she lets go of him, we take him, we're like, oh my God, we're so sorry. And she was super chill about it. It's not like she was going to sue us or anything. So we take Scrappy back to our parents, and my mom starts yelling at him like he was a normal child. Like, don't bite people. You know that's a priest. Why did you do this? And you know how, like, when you yell at a dog, they get really sad or really, like, they knew they screwed up. That was Scrappy. Like, he knew, like, he wasn't supposed to bite a priest. I'm pretty sure, like, dogs know that inherently. And he's like, oh, yeah, I shouldn't have bit her. She was a priest and I bit her. I shouldn't have bit her. And so everything's calming down. The people around who saw it were like, they were freaked, and then they calmed down a little bit. People were starting to, like, giggle about it. And then we were kind of scanning the area. And then, like, 2 feet, if that, from where chaplain was kneeling with Scrappy. There was a guy with a big-ass video camera with a long cable running from it all the way to a white van labeled K-Tab, which was one of the local news stations in my hometown. And we all kind of look at each other and like, oh, shit. Everyone's going to know that our dog's going to hell now. And so our parents kind of like explain like, well, they take a lot of footage at all these events and they kind of splice it together. Chances are that the footage of a dog biting a priest might not make the final cut just because it may make St. John's have a little bit of a bad image. They'll probably just do like other shots of kids, nicer dogs interacting with the chaplains, kids with their pets, that kind of thing. So we were like, okay, cool. Go home. Day passes. 6 o'clock news comes on. We're watching just to see if it happened to appear. And then the news anchor, kind of transitions and starts talking about St. John's, blessing of the animals. And literally the first footage that is shown from the event is Scrappy biting the priest. And 2 minutes after that segment ended, everyone we knew was calling my mom, calling our house, saying, oh my God, that was hilarious. Your dog really did bite a priest. That's awesome. And it started a little bit of embarrassment because he bit a priest. But as it went on, the more people liked it, I was like, you know what? It's actually kind of cool. Like, I doubt God is going to be upset with our dog. He was just defending himself. But it kind of became a badge of honor for us. We would go to school and one of my friends was like, oh, I got a 96 on this test. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but did your dog bite a priest? I don't think so. So who's really winning right now? And so Scrappy wasn't allowed to go back to Blessing of the Animals. We eventually, a year or two later, got another dog named Bogey, who's super, super nice, super sweet, has never bitten anyone in his life. So we took him because we knew he would just lick people. And Scrappy was totally fine with that. He's like, you take Bogey, I don't care. I'll just sit at home. But yes, rest in peace, Scrappy. But I'm not kidding. He wasn't allowed to go back. And so that was kind of the first instance, not necessarily me getting in trouble at school, but more eyes being on me and us being known a little bit more. And again, it wasn't the biggest school in the world. It was relatively small compared to most elementary schools. It was typically only one class per grade level. And as you got older and you became one of the 10 kids who was in third grade, one of the 8 kids who was in fourth grade, one of the 7 kids who was in fifth grade, more people, faculty and staff, knew who you were as a kid. And in third grade, that started to happen a little bit more. So at this school, it was a private school, so obviously you pay tuition, and they would use that tuition however they wanted. And a portion of it would go to renovating the recess area, the playground area. We had insane playground equipment at the time. It was maybe an acre, or I don't know how big an acre is, but it seemed like an acre of land behind the school with just random pieces of pretty cool at the time playground equipment stationed everywhere. We had a football field, but none of us played football. There was not a football team at the school. There was a soccer field, and eventually they paved a big circular track in the very back part of the field. And when it was time for your recess, you could play on the playground or you could walk or run on the track. And as you got older, you tended to just walk and talk with your friends on the track. You didn't really want to play on the playground because that's where kindergarten would go, because we all had recess at the same time typically. And in third grade, one day we were all walking around the track. Me and my friends. We were just talking, and one of my friends at the time had just seen the movie The Benchwarmers. That movie came out in like 2005, but it was new then. And he was talking about it. He was talking about how funny it was. It's a movie with David Spade and Rob Schneider. It's like a baseball spoof comedy type of thing. And he's just talking about it. Obviously, at that age, we don't get the more adult jokes. And obviously, he couldn't remember the more adult jokes because we were young. But it's like a PG-13 movie. But he's talking about it, telling us the funny things he remembered. And we're laughing. We're like, oh, that's funny. Ha, ha, ha. And we're walking. And then recess is over. We go back into our class. We're starting to do our work. And like 10 minutes into class, we get told that my friend group who was on the track talking about Benchwarmers, had to go to the principal's office. And we all kind of looked at each other like, why? We haven't pulled our card. We haven't done anything wrong. Some of y'all might be thinking, what does he mean pull their card? Like, I don't know if y'all had it, but at my schools at least, you would have like different colored cards on your wall. Some people had like moving a clip. We had different colored cards. You would start on blue, then you had a green card, a yellow card, and a red card. And if you fucked up during the day, you would pull your card. So the first time you got in trouble, you'd pull your blue card and you'd be on green card. And then if you screwed up again, you go to yellow card and then red card. And if you went to red card, you got sent to the principal's office and then sent home. And I was terrified. At this point, I was a goody two-shoes, super chill child, didn't upset anyone. I was on like my best behavior all the time. I never pulled my card. I did at a later time, but I'll talk about that at some other point. I cried and everything. But none of us had pulled our card that day, so we didn't know why we were being sent to the principal's office. So we go, and I'm kind of shitting myself because like I'd never been sent to the principal's office at that point, so I didn't know what to expect. But we all knew who the principal was. It was a small school, and everyone knew who the principal was. The principal was a super chill lady. Her name was Mrs. Stark. Super cool lady, super sweet. Everyone loved her. Everyone from the EPK, which was like 3-year-olds, all the way to 5th grade, we all loved her. And so once we stepped into her office, we kind of like relaxed a little bit just because she was so warm and inviting and so friendly. And then she starts to give us this whole speech about how certain things are good to talk about at school and some things are inappropriate to talk about at school. And she never specifically mentions that we talked about the Benchwarmers or anything like that, but she does kind of like dance around like, y'all were talking about inappropriate things at recess. You need to stop doing that. Essentially, if you read between the lines, she's like, this is a Christian school. Don't talk about stuff like that. That kind of thing. And I wasn't necessarily upset that she was like telling us not to talk about stuff like that. I was in 3rd grade, but I wasn't stupid. I'm like, yeah, of course, a private school probably doesn't want their students talking about PG-13 raunchy comedies. But I was more upset at the fact that someone tattled on us. And so I look at my friends, I'm like, did any of you, like, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, which of y'all tattled? Like, it's one thing to tattle on your friends and you not get in trouble, but if y'all tattled and you still got in trouble, that's just a stupid move. But then I thought, oh, wait, there's another kid in our class who's like a teacher's pet, like the definitive definition of a teacher's pet. And his parents were like teacher's pets too. And like, I was like, oh, wait, he was hanging around with us for part of recess. He must have overheard us and tattled on us. And then I thought, oh, this guy, he ruined my goody two-shoes reputation. Like, I could have gone through all of elementary school without being sent to the principal's office, but this guy screwed it up for me. And I mean, I'm not mad at him anymore. I mean, he's in medical school, so like, I really don't care. But I do sort of blame him for kind of ruining my goody two-shoes image at the time. And then also, like, are you really, like, who brings 3rd graders into a principal's office for just talking about a movie? Not even kind of repeating any of the bad language they said, but just kind of one kid telling the other kids about the movie. And I was like, oh, this is what I don't like. People, like authority figures, siding with one side over the other. And maybe this is where my problem with authority starts. Who knows? It's a safe bet. But then she sent us back to our classes. And then for the rest of my time at that school, I always harbored resentment toward that kid who tattled on us. I would always like stare at him like, oh, okay, I'll remember this for the rest of my life. And so far I have remembered it. But like I said, that principal was super chill, super nice, super warm. Again, she was probably just doing her job. It's a bad look if like pre-Kers overheard us talking about that movie, but again, who cares? But when I finished my 4th grade year, and I'm going into my 5th grade year, that warm, nice principal, Mrs. Stark, she left. She got a new job somewhere else. And we got a new principal. The anti-Mrs. Stark, if you will. A lot of people will say you can tell someone's crazy by their eyes, that they have crazy eyes. And I've never really, like, followed that. I can never tell if someone has crazy eyes. I just can't see it. Everyone else will tell me like, oh my God, Donald, why did you go on a date with that girl? She definitely has crazy eyes. I'm like, I can't see that. I don't know what you're talking about. And then I've realized at a later date, oh yeah, she probably was crazy. But for this lady in particular, looking back, she definitely did have crazy eyes. But something else about her tipped me off the fact that she was a little off. It was her skin. And not like the skin on her hands or anything, but like the skin on her face. It was like transparent. It was super thin. Like you could see every single muscle fiber, every single vein throughout her entire face. It looked like she was constantly being choked. And always had this really creepy smile on her face. And when I first saw her, I'm like, whew, something's off about her. And like I grew up with superheroes and comic books, and like I love Batman, and the Joker obviously has a twisted smile, and her smile reminded me of that. So that kind of tipped me off. I'm like, whew, let's have our guard up around this lady. So when she came in as principal, she instituted a new required class for all grade levels, that every grade level had to take this class once a week, and it was taught by her. It's called Godly Play. Now, it's a private school, and this new principal happened to be a reverend or a chaplain of some sort. So if you're the new principal and you want to institute a religious class at a religious school, no parent's going to object to that because that's what they're paying for. So it went off unopposed. And so we would go to this class every week. Every single grade level would go to this class. And I was in 5th grade at the time. And the school only went up to 5th grade. And it was me and 6 other kids. Me, 3 boys, and 3 girls. And whenever we went to this class, we would sit in a circle with her, and she would tell us Bible stories or moral lessons, that kind of thing. And then we go about our day, go back to class, do math, science, whatever. On one particular day, though, we went to this class, and the vibe was just off. Something in the air made me uncomfortable the minute I walked into that class. So I sit with all the other kids. We sit in the circle with her, and then she proceeds to pull out a life-size baby doll. Now, I don't like dolls. Hate them, in fact. Porcelain dolls, baby dolls, clowns. I don't like any of it. Especially the dolls that, like, if you tilt them a certain way, their eyes open and they blink. I hate it. It, like, gives me goosebumps, runs shivers down my spine, makes me want to just vomit. I hate it. But so she pulls out this baby doll. And you know how, like, baby dolls have, like, the clothes they come with just look cheap? It's, like, just something they just put together and put on the doll so it could have clothes. This doll was wearing a dress. but its dress didn't look cheap. It looked super elegant and super formal. Like it was like just normal people clothes, like a normal baby clothes. And so she starts passing this doll around to the other kids. And I'm sitting on the opposite side of the circle from her, so I don't get it first. Because, again, I don't like dolls. And then the principal proceeds to tell us a story. How her husband, her children, and her grandchildren were all sitting around one Sunday afternoon having a barbecue, laying out in the sun, playing in the pool, having a good time with family. And then she mentions that she had about a 1-year-old granddaughter. And the grandbaby was having fun. And at one point during the party, no one was watching the grandchild. And like I said, they had a pool. And then the grandchild walked right into the pool and drowned. And at this point, I'm shitting myself. I'm like, okay, where is she going with this? And then she reveals that the dress that her grandchild was wearing when she drowned was the dress that the baby doll is now wearing. And right as she said that, the doll gets to me. And I was only in 5th grade at this point, so I wasn't comfortable making a scene yet. And so I quickly passed the doll over, and it's just sitting in my mind that why would she tell... First of all, why would she tell us this? And 2, why would she bring that to class? And then she kind of just talks, and like nothing's weird about what she just pulled with us. And then she sends us back to our class, back to do math or whatever. And I wasn't necessarily truly traumatized. Well, I was traumatized, but that wasn't what stuck with me as I left that class. What really stuck with me is the fact that I know that she is teaching this class to every single grade level once a week. And my brother is in 2nd grade at this time. So he's going to come to this class at some point. And I'm freaking more about that than anything else. Sure, it scared the shit out of me that I was around an article of clothing that someone died in. But I was more terrified, like, oh my God, my brother's going to hear this. He's going to freak out. Because my brother will voice his opinions, especially at that time, would have voiced his opinions a little bit louder than I would have. Because if something seems off to my brother, he'll just say it. It didn't matter what age he was. And I love him for it. But then lunch happened, and again, you're in elementary school, you forget what happens during your day. And so our mom picks us up from school, and we get in the car, and like any parent, my mom says, hey, how was school today? What'd you do at school today? And the first thing my brother says is, Mrs. Robertson brought a dead baby to class. And my mom kind of she didn't stop the car immediately. She just kind of slowed down and kind of pondered to herself for a second, because she raised us in such a way that we knew not to make up ridiculous shit just to make a laugh. So she knew that when James said that, there had to have been some sort of nugget of truth to that. And she said, okay, I don't think she brought out a dead baby in class, but something related to a dead baby happened. Because James wouldn't have made that up just to be funny. So then she calls, raises hell. Other parents call because obviously other kids told their parents what happened. So we never had godly play after that, but she remained principal. And so the year goes on. We don't have godly play anymore. I don't remember seeing the principal all that often after that. But then at the end of the year, they kind of announce, oh, guess what? All you 5th graders, we're going to add 6th grade. So you don't have to go to public middle school after this year. You can just stay here, and we'll just keep adding on grades every year, and you'll graduate from here, and you'll go to senior year here, you'll graduate, and then you'll go off to college, and it'll be great. And there were 7 of us in 5th grade. 6 of us said no, including me. We all went to our different middle schools after that, except the one kid who tattled on me. He stayed for 6th grade. Go figure. And so we go to 6th grade the next year. Me and my friend Christian, we're at Madison Middle School, public school near our homes. And then on the news, later in the fall of that year, there was like a news report that Mrs. Robertson, the principal for St. John's, got fired because she kind of had a mental breakdown in front of the 3-year-olds, the EPK. I don't remember exactly, but it was something along the lines of God doesn't exist, God makes mistakes, that kind of thing. And obviously, these kids then went home and told their parents what they were told that day, what they learned at school that day. And if you're paying tuition for a religious school to teach like Christianity and Christian values and stuff, the principal saying shit like that is obviously not what you're paying for. So she got thrown out pretty fast. And then one of the EPK teachers took over as principal, and she's principal to this day. The school is running fine. Haven't been back there, obviously. But those 4 events kind of like shaped me into who I am more or less today, especially that whole baby doll incident, because I'm terrified of dolls and clowns, but primarily dolls since that moment. I don't like them. If I ever go over to someone's house or apartment or whatever, and they have even just one baby doll, it could just be a picture of a doll. I don't stay there. Like I don't stay there very long. I leave. Okay, I make an excuse, or I just straight up tell them I don't like dolls. I'm leaving. I just don't trust people like that. There's something off about people who love porcelain dolls or love life-size baby dolls or realistic dolls. Anyways, so yeah, those 4 events kind of shaped me. And those are stories that I haven't really told anyone, other than obviously the kids who were around during that time. And it kind of feels good to talk about them. It's weird. They're funny in their own little ways, or amusing at least. But yeah, this kind of concludes episode 1. I wish I had a more professional way of ending these episodes, but I'm sure I'll figure that out if this becomes a little bit successful. And I do like doing these. I do like talking like this. But so the plan is to post an episode every Friday. They're just going to be straight audio for now. Who knows? Maybe I'll incorporate a video here and there, a video element so y'all can see me as I talk, if that's something that is requested at some point. But for now, I'm going to stick with audio. Every Friday, it'll be posted. These episodes will be posted on the Just Fine Podcast YouTube channel. I made an Instagram and a Twitter for the podcast. Just search Just Fine Podcast, at Just Fine Podcast, or at the Just Fine Podcast, depending on Instagram or Twitter. It'll be on different podcast sites, Podbean, that kind of thing. If you wanted me to talk about particular topics, or want me to tell a particular story that you know that I've experienced or we've experienced together, just shoot me an email to the email address for the podcast. It's justfinepod@gmail.com. Again, this one was a little bit more structured just because I wanted to start off on a relatively strong note, just tell some stories. But most of these episodes will just be about me talking about random topics, kind of me rambling, letting my mind wander, talking about whatever comes to my brain, things that annoy me. As you may have been able to tell, I can be a pretty angry person. Not necessarily an angry person. Things just annoy me. It's very easy to annoy me. So I could spend a couple episodes talking about stuff that annoys me, and it's the little things that annoy me. I can also, I'll just talk about whatever's going on, what's going on in my life that day, what happened to me during the week, that kind of thing. So I hope you enjoyed episode 1 of the Just Fine podcast. If you like it, please subscribe, tell your friends. But again, don't set your expectations too high. Again, this podcast is going to be just fine. Nothing more. Thanks.